Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Boy, if it doesn't seem like this is an appropriate mustache or eating grin for this time in America, that's because you got a couple of reactions to dire news. Reaction one is that you can freak out and be sad. Reaction two is you can grit your teeth, give it a grin, and charge at it. That's the reaction I choose to take, right, y'all? But that said, I know I'm a hopium dispensing machine. I acknowledge that I tend to lean towards the side that highlights the various angles we can take on things. But I got some hopium for you. We are talking about the Supreme Court decision today to undo the Chevron doctrine. We are talking about Joe Biden's odds of being the candidate come November. And we're talking about what to do broadly about U.S. politics, how we can get out of this rut of just barely surviving conservatives in the United States. Lot on the plate. And yet I've only got one article because, number one, I'm trying a more Feldman-esque style of just talking to you guys. Number two is that, I want to try to do a call-in comments section. Hold up. That's interesting. Yeah, a call-in comments section. And I was hoping to display all comments, but I guess not. And number three is that I'm not entirely crystal clear on how to get audio from OBS to StreamYard other than the microphone. I'm using the virtual camera. It's helped with internet connection issues. Anyway, that'll be that. But that's fine because we're leaning into the Feldman stuff. How's everybody doing? Let's say hi to the gang. Good to see you, Anti-Corporatist. Good to see you, Rex Trek, Mrs. Jen. Good to see you, Pinkerbell. PC Clarity, hello. Whoa, sign of the times. Weed ads on Facebook? I'd never buy buds from a website on Facebook. Good thinking. Good thinking. These days, you can go down to your trusty local hashery and enjoy good old fashioned American weed. Bought from somebody you know, usually with a spider tattoo and gigantic piercings. That's the way I want it. I don't want to see somebody looking like me, a proper square up there, you know? I don't want to see a suit and tie weed salesman. I want to see somebody who looks like they're constantly working on a motorcycle. I'm like, they're going to know their weed. Anti-corporatist, I saw a billboard for a dispensary that alleges that it ships to all 50 states yesterday. They are either lying or irresponsible criminals because it is not legal in all 50 states. The letter hack. Well, hello, my friend. Good to hear from you. Oh, hey, gang. We're doing something special today and every day. If we get $100 in donations throughout the course of this stream, I don't think it's likely, but if we do, we're going to do at the end of the stream, when we're done talking about the news of the day, another episode of Diversity Squad, the game where people come on here and risk their careers in an attempt to have a conversation with people who are not currently present. That's the game. That's the plan. There we go. Let's try that all together. Now, that's the game plan. So if we get $100 in donos, then I'm willing to risk my career again. I enjoyed Diversity Squad quite a bit. I got some positive feedback. I'm enjoying the potential. But, you know, there's got to be reward for that risk. So $100 in donations, and we end the stream with a game of Wicked Diversity Squad. let's check this out. Alicia, see, maybe that was not intended for everyone. Well, it might be CBD that they ship, says the letter hack. That is possible. Rex Track, oh my God. With the very kind $10. No message included, no message necessary. You're ready to see some diversity squad. All right, fair enough. That's 10 out of 100. We get the full 100. Wait, $100 not to do it? No, no, sir. We're doing it at $100. We're already 10% of the way there. So thank you very much, Rex Track. Let's show that again. You are an officer and a gentleman. Oh, all right, gang. We gonna get into it. First up, let's talk about that Supreme Court ruling because it's less interesting, even though it's more consequential. I feel Supreme Court just said that the Chevron doctrine, the presidential immunity ruling is what we're going to talk about first. Then Chevron doctrine. We're working our way back. Presidential immunity ruling is a rough one. Hi, fellow monarchists. We were recently talking about how if you are a right winger, you are not conservative anymore. You are a monarchist. And lo and behold, it was amazing to be, and terrifying and deeply sad, to be proven right so quickly, son of a bit. 15% of the way there, gang. If I was much younger, taller, and lived in Michigan, I can finish that for you. I would dunk on this gangly Lithuanian. Now, I understand, but I'm surprisingly good with the pick and roll. So, you know, uh, no. What we said the other night was that if you're a Democrat, if you're a Democrat, you're a conservative. If you are a progressive who is voting with Democrats, then you're a progressive. Then you're a lefty. But if you're a Republican, it's no longer accurate to say that you are conservative because that's just not the way it is. You're a regressive if you're a Republican. You are trying to wind things back to at the very least, a 1950s state of being, but not with all the taxes for the rich. So you got to go back even further, even further. And you can get all the way back to King George. You're a monarchist. That's what they want. That's the level of power they want the executive branch of this country to have. And we were just shown to be correct because the Supreme Court just ruled in a split along party lines. I know we're not supposed to have parties in the Supreme Court, but we do. Decision that the president cannot be held responsible for illegal orders that they give. Bask in that for a moment. What they have said is that the president of the United States, during an official act, so if they are acting as the president, can't be charged with a crime. This means, they didn't clarify what is an official act, but they left it open. Equally terrifying, they didn't clarify, which means that if Biden does it, they're going to say it wasn't an official act, whatever it was. But if Trump does the exact same thing, they'll say, well, that was an official act. That's where we are. So, president could turn to their general and say, I want you to go shoot the head of the opposition in Congress. Get your best man on it or woman. I'm that kind of fascist. I'll be surprisingly forward thinking in who my assassins are. Get them to shoot my political opponent in Congress. Now, it would still be illegal for the general to carry out that order. but it's not illegal for the president to give it. Did they somehow curb the president's pardon powers? Nope, they sure didn't. Which means if you're a general or anybody, frankly, that works for the government or could even reasonably be said to be contracting for the government, and the president tells you to do something, that president can't get in trouble for it. And oh, hey, by the way, they can give you a pardon for whatever thing they told you to do. And there is nothing our Department of Justice can do about it. Bask in that for a moment. We now live in an authoritarian state. We are lucky in that we currently do not have an authoritarian leading it, but it doesn't mean Biden couldn't just decide to start acting like one. It cannot always come down to winning the election for the good guys. It just can't. This is how we have been running now for the last 2 elections. Frankly, this is how we've been running since the days of Newt Gingrich, where every single day post Reagan, we have known that if the Republicans win, democracy loses, and it has been eroded to this point where we are now in the authoritarian state. You guys are on day 2, if you're in the United States, of being in an authoritarian state. We got to get out of it. We have to get out before we wind up with another regressive in office. Getting out of it is going to have to be a hell of a lot better than what Joe Biden just did. Joe Biden gave a press conference, I think in part to make people assured that he's able to say a coherent sentence. I know I'm one to talk, but still, I'm not the president. He gave a press conference where he said, "Don't worry, I won't use any of the powers the Supreme Court just gave me." And that's about all he said about it. He said, "I dissent right along with," what was it, Kagan that wrote the dissenting opinion, as though they've both done their job then. Those justices that voted against it did their job. It is the president's job. It is the politician's job to tell us, how do we fix this? But Biden's a conservative. He doesn't have a plan for fixing things. He only maintains. That's all he does. We have had conservatives or regressives in the form of Democrats or Republicans for the last 40 years in this country. We can't afford another. Good news, Biden might not be the presidential nominee. He gave a historically, oh, Pinkerbell, thank you. It was Sotomayor. Thank you, Pink. He gave a historically bad debate performance. We talked about this already, but there has since been a CNN poll that's come out. We're going to get to that in a moment, but I want to stick grouped with the Supreme Court for now. The Chevron doctrine. That's the other ruling they came down with. That basically removes the ability of government organizations to make their own decisions in terms of what fines or punishments will be levied against people who break their rules, or if they're even truly allowed to make any rules at all. Now, every time it used to be that if you, say, violated the Environmental Protection Agency's rule that you cannot dump a big vat of chemicals into a river right by a town's drinking water, there was a fine they could write you. They could tell you to shut down your operations until they can verify that it's safe. Now, every time the EPA sends a little letter, what's going to happen is that will be objected to by whatever murderous corporation is poisoning your children. It will be objected in a, they'll find a way to get it into a Texas court, specifically the district in Texas with the judge that Trump appointed that has been just doing whatever corporations want. The actual intent of the law be damned. The actual safety of the people be damned. And then it will be rejected. Whatever the EPA tried to do to stop the corporation from harming you will be rejected. That is the world we live in now. Wait for these first cases to rule in. Rule in, roll in. Wait for these first cases to roll in. Again, conservatives or regressives. That is what we've had for the last 40 years. There is no American that knows what it's like to have a progressive president. We voted for one just one time. I suppose you could say twice. But just one president was thought to be progressive. Barack Obama pitched himself. He allowed us to think he was a progressive. He leaned hard into that characterization. He just didn't behave that way in office. He was as neoliberal as it gets. He expanded the power of the courts to attack American citizens. He did nothing to end the endless, it seemed, wars in the Middle East. That gave a lot of people a bad taste in their mouth. But I want to be clear. We have never had a progressive in the White House. But you know what? We've also never had a progressive majority in the Democratic Party. It feels like we've been fighting the Republicans with one hand and the Democrats with another. More like we've been fighting the Republicans with one hand while fending off attacks from neoliberal Democrats with the other. There is a way out of this. And it is in this election to go as progressive as you can, to start as of now only donating, only ever donating to progressive candidates. Or if you live in a purple district, only ever donate to the bluest of candidates. But that's the way out. Ground up. Starting local, just like conservatives did. Start local and have true blue waves. And then there's the president. Oh boy, oh boy. Groove Dragon, well put. SCOTUS, build back better. Del Sol Verde, I don't blame Jimmy Carter, believe it or not. I blame Ronald Reagan. I blame Ronald Reagan because he's the one that understood or introduced to us the sugar high of tax cuts for the rich. He's the one that really popularized trickle down economics and took advantage of the American attention span. He's the one that knew that we wouldn't be able to track something for more than a month or two after it happened. So what happened was he gave massive tax cuts to the rich. We got the sugar high in the economy as those rich people invested in a bunch of things that would make them richer but not help anybody else, but would make the stock market reflect positive changes. And then the inevitable crashes that happened when those tax cuts began to hurt us, when the things those taxes were supposed to pay for couldn't be paid for. But the money didn't come back to the American people. Instead, what happened? It got hoarded by dragons. The oligarchs held on to the money in the form of the things they invested in. And on paper, they got richer and richer and richer and richer. And in reality, they did nothing to help America. Ronald Reagan is who I blame because every Every president after that has tried to be Ronald Reagan. Willfully, I believe, willfully ignoring the reality of what Reagan was, which is a thief who stole from you, possibly your parents, possibly your grandparents. That's who Ronald Reagan was, a criminal who did a literal drug deal with the U.S. government, exchanging drugs for guns, drugs for cash for guns, to fund terrorism. But that's ignored because of neoliberal foolishness, because of the Democratic Party being weak. Oh, well, I love it. Hello, Wicked Earthlings. Hello, Public Utility. Donald James. I've made my point through the day already. Okay. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Oh, I'm way behind. Baker Bell. Actually, she might have something for me here. Oh, cool lifetimes in the USA. Oof. Well, that's a great segment, Anti-Corporatist, especially after that leak polling today. Kamala still loses to Trump, but not as bad as Biden. She's an uninspiring candidate. I agree. And this is well put by, I believe, Bob Carmody. The Dems come in and clean up, then the Republicans crash the economy again, and the Dems come in and clean it up again. Yeah, that's it. That is what happens. It's a predatory cycle that takes advantage of the American attention span. And Democrats are actually dumb enough to believe, I believe, they believe that Republicans are good with money. All Americans in my life up until until Trump basically believed that Republicans were good with money. If you go ask the average American now, they will which party is better with economics. People will respond Republican because they don't actually follow this stuff at all. They'll act like they do. They might even think they do. But they have never once looked at the cause and effect of policies put into practice. They have only ever heard CNN reporting on it, or Fox reporting on it, God help us, or even MSNBC reporting on it. And even then, they didn't understand what they were hearing. They just were listening to the tone of the broadcaster and saying, yeah, I get it. No, Republicans are terrible with money. But speaking of, let's talk about that debate performance. I have a theory. It's a wild, wild conspiracy theory. It will probably never be proven. But I nonetheless am going to toss it out there. I just had an alarming symbol come up. Connection is unstable. Oh boy. Well, hopefully this lasts. If I crash, by the way, if I don't make it, we're going to keep the tally of donos going. Meaning, if this stream ends randomly because of God, then the $15 that has been donated so far will be counted towards the next stream, which will have the same bet going. Because if we get to $100, we're doing Diversity Squad. But I believe Biden heard Trump saying Biden's going to be on pills during the yada, yada, yada. And I think he felt like he had to prove that Trump had it wrong. I think Biden would have been on a shot of something, except that Trump said he would be. And I think he's a dumb enough Democrat that he decided, listen, Jack, I'm not going to take anything. Then he'll see. Cut to, I say this just based on the way Biden has behaved every single second I've seen him for the entirety of my lifetime when he was in front of a camera. Just based off who he is as a person, falling for the most simplistic of Republican tricks. easily letting them get in his head, easily letting them control his behavior. Even now, as the Supreme Court says, we can give presidential immunity a go. Absolutely. Because we know Biden won't do anything with it. I think in the Supreme Court's best case scenario, Biden doesn't do anything with it. Trump wins, becomes a fascist. But in their second best case scenario, which I think is the one we're more likely to endure, Biden doesn't do anything with it. Then he gets reelected. Biden doesn't do anything to get rid of the Supreme Court's awful decision. Not a damn thing. And he continues to not do anything. And then 4 years from November, we get a Republican. And that person becomes the fascist who they set the table for. They know. They know there is absolutely no risk in giving power to a Democrat because Democrats don't know how to use power. All they know how to do is roll over. Truly, all they know how to do is stand by. A Democrat at their absolute best just stands by. Good news, we might not have to deal with Biden much longer. Oof. Maybe. But I didn't go after Trump for that, so I'm not going to go after Biden for that either. Logan Hill, the great man of history ideology, has never been helpful. It causes arrogant people to fail and then blame others. Yeah, I believe that. 100% I believe that. I think in reaction to that, we should be working more and more on getting Congress filled up. By the way, neat thing about Congress being our main goal is that there are more opportunities. There's always, every year, there's special elections. Somebody has a heart attack, somebody else drops out, somebody has a scandal. There's always opportunities for us to improve those margins. No. De La Soul, excuse me, Del Sol Verde. I liked the band De La Soul. Del Sol Verde said, "Sorry for going blue after this comment." That's fine. This, as you can see, this is a blue stream. A circle jerk of blind corporate Democrat optimism. Yeah, and they can afford to be optimistic because they are never harmed. It's really just us that gets harmed. Donald James X. I blame the voters. This country is a theo-fascist right-wing country. People choose this, not their propaganda. They're not propagandized to be that way. No more excuses. They are though. Go ask somebody who only watches Fox News how the country works, and get ready to have your jaw drop. They are. They're specifically propagandized to be that way. That is literally what the problem is. And I'm fine with blaming them. I don't want to contradict you there. I'm fine with blaming them because they chose to be, because they've had every opportunity to get better news sources. But we have the difficulty of the fact that their whole world is built around lies that Fox News told them. That's the real ugly work that's going to have to be done, either by us or more realistically by a better class of politician. Donald James X. Nope, I don't buy it. I mean, we're going to have a call-in portion. I'd love to talk with you about this more because I want to know what it is either I'm missing or where I'm failing to communicate, because my suspicion is that when we get rid of Fox News, when that happens, the veils comes off a lot of eyes, and their world cannot be maintained anymore. By the way, related, it's also Joe Rogan. It's also Tim Pool. It's also Steven Crowder. It's all these people. It's the right wing propaganda machine. But good news. We're in an era where the biggest one of them loses customers every day. Fox News loses customers every day that are not replaced. Donald James, if I can be free from propaganda, I expect others to. Uh, that's fair. That is fair. I'm not saying if I can break free from propaganda, I expect others to. No, it's fair. I'm not saying that your assessment of them is wrong. In fact, I even agree that blaming them is correct. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that they are working with uh, intentionally misleading information. Both things are true at the same time. So it is both that we should blame the voters and that there is a propaganda machine working to blind them and make them make bad decisions. I think we have to address both, but to be continued because that's an interesting point. Oh, it's too. This is too interesting. I grew up Jehovah's Witness. I was in a straight right wing household. I broke free. See what I mean? Oh yeah, but I think I guess my point is that you're underselling your own strength, your own accomplishment in doing so. I think it's unfair to assume that the average person is able to do that. I think the average person is a little bit dumb and a little bit weak and just wants to have a cold beer and a humorous stand-up comedy special. And they don't think about this stuff a whole lot because they don't really care about it all that much. That's what I think. To be continued. What? Traffic tailspin, far right websites seeing as much as 95% decline in visitors since 2020. Interesting. That's from a person named Carl Gibson. Bongo Dave, I escape Mormonism. I sympathize. I do think that there is a similarity between Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism. Perhaps it's more polite these days to say the Church of Latter Day Saints, but I think there's a kinship there, and rightly so. Um, hmm. Anyway, let's go on to the fact that we now have Biden as a serious contender. Let me try that again. We now have a serious possibility that Biden will drop out of the race. I realize he came out after uh, his terrible debate performance and said, "No, I don't intend to. It was just a bad night." That's what he had to. Unless he was going to that moment, right up until the moment where he does, he can't acknowledge that he's considering it. But I think he is considering it. And I think that's good for us, frankly. I think the American people have learned that the presidency is not as much of a force for good as they thought it was, and it's every bit a potential force for evil as we suspect it was. It certainly is now. We're going to stand by for a moment while I pull this up and a article from CNN, they just did a poll. And in that poll, uh-oh, they say most voters think Democrats have a better chance of keeping the White House if Biden isn't the nominee. Well, shoot, I tend to agree with them. You'll have to give me a moment, though, because I cannot interact with this at the moment. Hold on, let me refresh. Hey, there we go. Hold on to your butts, folks. Three-quarters of U.S. voters say the Democratic Party would have a better shot at holding the presidency in 2024 with someone other than President Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. According to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS, his approval rating also has hit a new low following a shaky performance in the first debate of this year's presidential campaign. In a matchup between the presumptive major party nominees, voters nationwide favor former President Donald Trump over Biden by 6 points. Good God Almighty. 49 to 43, identical to the results of CNN's national poll on the presidential race in April and consistent with the lead Trump has held in CNN polling back to last fall. Let me be clear. Trump tried a coup. Trump tried a coup. He tried to overthrow democracy. At this point, it doesn't even matter if the Supreme Court said, nope, that coup was legal. They didn't, but they came damn close to it. Doesn't matter, though. It was known what he did. And this is where the numbers are still. Why is that? Well, Biden has had 1,000 opportunities to make it clear to the American people what is going on, and he's failed to do so. Setting aside Israel, which is, I can't stress enough, a genocide, specifically Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. That's genocide. Setting that aside, all he's had to do is come out about once a month and give the American people an update on Trump's criminal proceedings. What he could have done is come out and give a conference about that after his poll numbers came out. And a lot of people would have clucked and worried and said, "Whoa, that's so uncouth." And no one who works a real job would have given a shit. There it is. Trump versus Biden. There are some signs in the poll that each candidate has consolidated support among their own partisans in recent months, a period that has seen both Trump's conviction on felony charges in New York and the first election, a general election debate of the contest, though independents appear increasingly reluctant to support either man. Can you imagine if Biden just came out and was like any other presidential candidate? I'm talking Tim Kaine. I'm talking, God help us, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, for God's sake. I know she lost to 26. I don't want Clinton. I will strap road flares to my chest and hug her if if she becomes the nominee. No, I won't have it. But she could have beat him. Any other presidential candidate. Can you imagine how different these numbers would be? The poll also finds Vice President Kamala Harris within striking distance. Here's the key thing: in a hypothetical against of Trump in a hypothetical matchup, 47% of registered voters support Trump, 45 Harris. A result within the margin of error that suggests there is no clear leader under such a scenario. Harris is slightly stronger showing against Trump. Remember, she's the vice president. That's not a little thing that she's doing better than the president. It's not just personalities people are judging on. She has the disadvantage of being unproven, whereas Biden is proven, for better or for worse, to be the most hosted show in late night. God, I love The Daily Show. Harris is unproven. Biden is proven for whatever, better or worse, whatever he is. The fact that Harris is doing better than him in a poll is going to be devastating right now. The White House is an awkward place to be right now. Serious conversations are being had right now. Several other Democrats have been mentioned as potential Biden replacements in recent days, and each trails Trump among registered voters. I am not going to read them off except for one because I'm super biased, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer with only 42% of the poll. Oh, hell, let's do it all. California Governor Gavin Newsom, 43%. Pete Buttigieg, 43%. Whitmer, 42%. Yowzes. Here's why none of those other names actually matter. None of those other names matter because they avoided the democratic process. There have already been primaries. More importantly for Democrats, specifically the neoliberal Democrats, there have already been donations. Those aren't going to transfer. Those went to Biden Harris. If Harris is the nominee, I don't know, but I believe. I currently think with the information available, but again, I want to stress I don't know. Those donations transfer. They don't if it's Whitmer, as much as I would prefer Gretchen Whitmer. Big Gretch, by the way. I would call her quick little inside baseball for you. I would call her a former neoliberal. She's not her what she thinks of the world is built off the same crap that made people think that you want to be compared to Reagan. Like that's a good thing. Um, she was certainly raised neoliberal. She cut her political teeth neoliberal. She got all the way up to getting elected governor as neoliberal. But you need to understand what happened. She got elected governor shortly after two major things happened. Number one, Trump was elected in 2016. Number two, Rick Snyder finished being the governor. Rick Snyder caused Flint. If you guys have heard of Flint, Michigan, it's probably because you know about the cancer babies got. You know about the horrific water crisis that occurred under Rick Snyder. Puts a different taste in your mouth, so to speak. So Gretchen Whitmer was much more inclined to be much more progressive. And in a state, you tend to hear more from your constituents than you do when you're a national level, yada, yada, yada. So she has been much more progressive leaning than one would have expected. And there's no reason to think she wouldn't continue that way because her biggest successes in her political career have been progressive victories. Again, she can be a totally selfish person. I think anybody who has neoliberal tendencies is a selfish person by nature. But even as a selfish person, she's she I don't know that she is or isn't. I'm just saying let's assume that she is. It's still in her best interest to pursue progressive policies because she is a young woman, given the average age of a politician in the United States, and intends to have a proud life, I suppose. Also, understand she was such a lefty that a group of terrorists called the Wolverine Watchmen tried to murder her. These are facts, folks. Look it up. Thank you, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, by the way, for catching the bad guys. Isn't it crazy what it's like when you have actual lefties in charge? But that's my Michigan tangent done because she's just not realistic. First of all, I don't think I know she was reported to have said ill of Biden. She came out and denied that. Second, I don't think anybody truly serious is talking about replacing Kamala Harris on the ticket right now. But there has been shocking discussions on neoliberal media like CNN with or on MSNBC with Morning Joe. Shocking discussions by insiders, as in people who would worry about ruining their relationships, about replacing Biden. That doesn't happen unless there are truly shocking conversations happening behind the scenes. Now, I notice that we had a phenomenon very similar to January 6th, where, excuse me, the January 6th committee. If you recall, we all assumed that Merrick Garland was on top of things, and then he appeared to be shocked by some of the revelations that came out of the J6 committee. Same things happening with these neoliberal newscasters. We all assumed they knew what was up. They knew how good or bad Biden was, and now they're panicking. So they didn't know. They thought they knew, probably, but they didn't. Now we're having real conversations. Finally, real conversations. These don't happen unless there are serious conversations behind the scenes. I think Biden might even wait for another poll to come out. I don't think he's going to make the decision based on one poll. But if he's plummeting, even after these press conferences, I will give Biden this credit. He has shown himself to be the kind of person who understands that legacy matters. He has not shown himself to be the kind of person that understands that legacy is more important than the next 4 years potentially of being praised and looked to and relevant. But he does believe legacy matters. He does give at least a little bit of a fuck about those things. Which means he might. I almost said may, then it was might, then it was might. No, he might uh, choose to step down for the good of the country. Because it's serious. 2025 is happening. And the Democratic Party, God help us, is all we have to stop it. He might step down. It's plausible. Frickin' what was it? All right, Morning Joe initially gave their harsh response. Mika Brzezinski then came on Monday and took it back. But nonetheless, that was before the CNN poll came out. CNN poll comes out, says America thinks that Harris has a better chance to win. And Biden has been saying himself, this whole thing, the whole case for electing him was his electability. So now that case is being made for other candidates. Good news if you're a progressive. Harris is more likely to be receptive to stopping Israel, or not even that. Harris is more likely to stop assisting Israel's genocide. I don't know that she'd do anything to actively prevent it, but she would stop assisting it. At least she'd be more likely to. That's a real possibility. That might not even be an argument we need to have. More likely, it will be an argument that we need to have, but it's one we're more likely to win with Harris than with Biden. Biden has a cartoonish view of Israel. I would gather, no, not gather. I would submit that it's every bit as cartoonish as, it's every bit as racist, frankly. maybe race is the wrong term, bigoted? Yeah, it's every bit as bigoted as somebody who irrationally hates all Jews. His idea of Israel happens to, work in Israel's favor, but it's not based in reality. Kamala Harris has not shown that level of delusion. It will be a good thing, in my opinion, if we, have Kamala Harris as the, nominee. If Biden releases his delegates and we have Harris as the nominee, I think it will be a good thing. I believe it will be a good thing because Harris will be more receptive to progressives, particularly as she campaigns. She may make a play to get that 12% back from Michigan, that 8% back from what was it, New York? Regardless, those percentages lost. She's more likely to try to get those back. But even if she goes straight middle of the road, it has been made clear that it is Democrats versus MAGA. So all is not lost. And even with this wretched Supreme Court decision, this nightmarish Supreme Court decision, it has it has shown the American people what the stakes are. I think Harris is more likely to explain that to the American people. She is not charismatic, but she does understand, at the very least, the necessity of laying out the case for the American people. That will be a good thing. Let's hope Biden does the right thing and steps down. In a moment, we're going to talk about what if he doesn't. But first, let's see what the wicked community had to say. Status quo 2024. Here's the thing. Yeah, we need for the presidency to just ensure that it doesn't go to a fascist. I would love if somehow we got out of this with a progressive in the White House, but we've never had one before. And I think it's unrealistic to build plans around doing something that has literally never been done before. What we have had are influential progressives in Congress. If we get enough of those, we don't just get progressive bills passed. We don't just get people making the progressive case to America through their legislation and through their speeches on House and Senate floors. We also get a network of support for a presidential candidate. Think about who Rashida Tlaib supported back in 2020. Bernie. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who'd she support? Bernie. I think even having people like Maxwell Frost, and he's I would argue less of a progressive than Tlaib in those listed names, but he's still pretty darn progressive. Guy's 26 now. Happy birthday, Mr. Frost. Uh, Getting more people like that in positions of power makes it easier to get the position of power. But more importantly, it also puts us in a place where we can send bills to the White House that force the White House to take our side or admit they are conservative. Oh my gosh, Sandy. I read somewhere that Kamala is more sympathetic to the Palestinians. I believe it. It would be hard to be less sympathetic to the Palestinians. Patrick Thibodeau, my man. All Biden ever wanted was to be president. His ego won't allow him to step aside. But is all Biden ever wanted to be president for 8 years? Biden's been president now. And I'll tell you this, the guy is super, super, what's the word? What's the word when you're kind of emotional about things? When you're a little bit sappy? Help me out. Well, he's super sentimental. Sentimental. Biden's a sentimental guy, and I feel as though he may step down simply because he wants to be seen as honorable. And right now, there's a lot of people giving him both carrot and stick. He's got a nice off ramp. Also, let me stress when I said his money can't transfer over, doesn't mean he can't spend it where he pleases. So if he steps off the ticket, he could still be an influencer by essentially having a gigantic PAC that supports whoever he chooses to be the replacement. Uh, Wait a minute. What did I say? Nope, never mind. Okay, so public utility. No worries. Checks and balance will protect democracy. Don't. Oh my God. That could be good. Two women defeating the worst fucking jerk off we've ever had running for office. Bongo Dave, I would respect him for stepping down. Hand things to Kamala and whoever polls best with her. I wholeheartedly agree. I would respect that as well. I don't think in my heart I can truly ever forgive him. Logan Hill schmaltzy. Yeah, that's a good word for it too. I don't think I can truly ever forgive him for Palestine. But you can acknowledge a bad thing and also acknowledge a good thing done by the same person. You can separate those and talk about them separately. The letter hack. One thing to keep in mind with polling, potential replacements will likely poll much differently if running for president than now. True. True. Um, but we talk about the incumbent advantage all the time. Um, Even as I say this, I have a caveat, but I'll start by saying my point and then argue against it. The incumbent advantage is a matter of understanding, picturing what the person would be like in office, what the country would be like under their leadership. And people are skittish things. And people tend to look around and think, I'm alive, so's my family. I'm sticking with things as they are. As I said that, though, it really is an election of Democrats versus MAGA. So, as Pink says, the letter hack might be right. It might be that the whole Democratic Party has that incumbent advantage. And when we start polling people about Whitmer, about Newsom, about Buttigieg, about Harris, that they'll suddenly remember, oh, yeah, that's right. Here are things I don't like about them. Or they'll suddenly learn some things they don't like about them. I guess what I would do when viewing these candidates, and hell, we'll do it right now, impromptu. What I would do is a real quick, what's the first bad thing you're going to hear about them? Harris, what's the first bad thing you're going to hear? Prosecutor that made it illegal for your kid to skip school. Illegal for you, the poor parent. That's right. As a prosecutor, Kamala Harris punished the parents of truant children. And oh, wouldn't you know it, that happened to be poor and minority families most often. What will you hear about Newsom? Neoliberal shill. Republicans will love it. Progressives will hate it. That's probably going to be the things you hear. How he overstepped his authority as governor. That's probably going to be the case Republicans make against him to roll back legislation that would have harmed Tesla. My God, wow. Republicans really are going to like him, but they'll just say he's a communist. So that'll hit him in the progressive area. So we got two knocks for progressives there. Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Oh, Buttigieg, you're gonna probably just have Donald Trump going, what he's one of the gays. You might hear about Pothole Pete, how he couldn't fix the potholes when he was mayor of yada yada. Probably going to hear about the airlines again. It's basically just going to be boring stuff. But he has so little personality that he's actually the one I'm most nervous about, despite the fact that he has the second cleanest background. What do you hear about Whitmer? You're going to hear that she fucking crushed it. Now, I don't want to give her too much credit. She crushed it because she was at the tip of a Democratic wave in Michigan. So it looks like she was this uber progressive governor. And I want to be clear, she wasn't. I know I said that she was she had her most touted accomplishments are progressive, and they are. That doesn't mean she was a progressive. She wasn't. But the thing you're going to hear about her from the Republicans, mask mandates. From everybody else, yeah, she's the um, governor who terrorists tried to get and they failed. You ever read like those paperback thrillers? She lived one, basically. I was reporting on it as she lived one. Uh, that's what you're going to hear about her, and all of it irrelevant because they have to do Harris. I mean, they're Democrats. They cannot do anything outside of the norm. And when they're forced to, like a situation like this, they go as close to the norm as they can. I truly don't. I think all of these names are just names of potential vice presidential nominees. That's it. And I think Newsom is the most likely to get it because they really are going to play to aesthetics. Well, oh, yeah, that's what we're talking about now. Real quick, as I pull up this article, God bless you for doing it. Rudy Giuliani disbarred. Thank you, LT9K. Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing it in the AP, baby. Yeah, real quick as I'm setting this up, if we get to $100 in donations today, we will end this stream by doing a bonus stream, another episode of Wicked Diversity Squad, where your old pal Jake risks his career to appeal to folks that are not currently on stage, not currently watching. Um, that is if we get to $100 in donations. So if you got a few extra bucks, consider donating. It will be a delightful disaster. Wait, it took this long? Says Pinkerbell of Rudy Giuliani. Uh, yeah, yeah. What a state we're in. We really do need to have like a reckoning in this country. We need a progressive overhaul of America. I'm talking constitutional amendments to keep big money out of politics. I'm talking an overhaul of the Supreme Court. I'm talking about an overhaul of the DOJ so that we have not only people in there who actually give a damn about justice, but consequences for people who fail to do their jobs. We had freaking Jeffrey Epstein spared by Jim Acosta because he was just told not to by shady people in the government. He was told not to go after Epstein the first time, and so he didn't. They essentially said he has too many friends. Oh wait, he's part of a larger investigation that'll never come to fruition. Yada yada yada. We need an overhaul. May it begin this time. Public Utility says no way Kamala Harris will be can win. I disagree. I think a old torn shoe nailed to a fence post could beat Donald Trump. Doesn't mean they will. but I think the candidate matters less and less and less. We're gonna do Giuliani in a moment. I want to finish up on Biden because the public utility, you've brought me right to the main point. What happens if Biden doesn't drop out? I think nothing. It would be good for us if he did because it's easier for us to then get progress on Israel. If he doesn't, I think he is still more likely to beat Trump than not. I think he could be in an iron lung and beat Trump. I think he could be half in a coma and beat Trump. It'll have almost nothing to do with his skill as an orator or politician. The upside to it would be that we definitely only have 4 more years of Biden. Because the downside to Harris is that we get 8 more years of neoliberalism. And I'm frankly not down for that. Newsom, God help us. Devon Bledsoe, half of all voters in America are women. True. Jon Stewart, Jewish, progressive, experienced with dealing with Congress dragging feet. Unironically, not as a joke. Let me just be crystal clear. I'm very serious when I say I would prefer Jon Stewart as the candidate. Candidate for what? Anything. President, most especially. Why not? What does he need money? Why is he sticking on TV? Go, Jon Stewart. Run in the very next opportunity you have to run for president. You should. Zelensky was in a similar position. Comedy show host. Well, it was a dramedy, but nonetheless, he went from comedian to president. You could do the same, Jon Stewart. We need somebody who gives a damn. That is you, sir. Since your first time on The Daily Show, we've yet to have the politician who does. We cannot wait any longer. Jon Stewart, what are you doing? Run for president. Logan Hill, it's a voter turnout issue with Biden. Yeah, it makes sense. I still think we'll get it. Truly, people are not going to vote. No one that I'm aware of. No one that I've talked to in person. No one who I've talked to online is going to vote for Biden. Every single person I've talked to that isn't voting for Trump is voting against Trump. Which means they're also voting for whoever the Democrat is. There's nobody that was voting for Biden that I've talked to. And admittedly, I know that's my personal experiences. It's not universal, yada, yada. But nobody who was going to vote for Biden would turn to any other Democrat and say, oh, they're not good enough. Or I'm just going to stay home. They are voting against Trump. So long as Trump is on the ballot, they are going to show up to vote. We can't assume that will happen. We should assume that nobody will. We should do everything in our power to defeat Trump at his most powerful. But if you want my honest assessment of the situation, that is what I think we are dealing with. Environmental Coffee House, people staying home and not voting this time are fucking stupid. No matter what, vote for one of them. There's other parties, just vote. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, early on, when people were talking about not voting for Biden over Palestine, I had that twinge of fear because I'm going to be real here. People from my generation, despicably, used to say, "Oh, the Democrat on the ballot isn't good enough, so I'm not going to vote at all." Horrifying. But that's not what's going on now. That's not what I'm hearing now. I'm hearing that people who won't vote for Biden are still going to vote. And in the worst case scenario, they're just going to leave the presidential bubble unfilled. But fair enough. So long as you're still turning up to vote, I'm right there with you, Sandy. Absolutely. It's insane not to show up and vote. Get things as progressive as you can. Never sit out another election in your whole life. Never sit it out. Donald James X, Biden numbers are down with the Arab Islamic community. Are we going to call them stupid for not voting? Yeah, for sure. Um, if they don't want to vote for Biden, that's fine, as I say. But not voting at all, yeah, don't let Biden control your vote. I don't think I'm in Dearborn, Michigan, whose mayor has been on. It's Mayor Abdullah. He's been on national television saying, um, "I'm not supporting Biden." Uh, but it doesn't mean he's encouraging people not to go vote. No, you should. You should still go vote. You don't have to vote for Biden, but don't let your anger with Biden, if you're a fellow Dearbornian. Nope, not that. If you're a fellow resident of Dearborn, don't let Biden's failure take away your vote for your state representatives, for your governor, for all the other things on the ballot. You don't owe allegiance to anyone but yourself. And Biden cannot and should not take away your vote for any other race. Pinkerbell, it's silly to act like having two women on the ticket isn't a hurdle in the USA. I slightly agree. But I think, funny enough, the way we get past that is just by acting like it's not. I think people, especially Americans, react to things based on how it is presented to them. And if it's just flat out presented to them like it's nothing, I think it'll take them a minute to find their bigotry. But you are right. It's shitty. It's just we're not good people in this country. Overall, we're not good people. We can be. We can change. We're starting to change. But if you were to tell me, give me an assessment of America throughout your 37 years, good or bad, I would say bad. Overall, we're not good people. Overall, we mostly allow others to suffer while we are comfortable. So long as we're comfortable, we will let any amount of pain and misery exist. We need to change that in our souls. Groove Dragon. How about VFFs voting friends forever, like a buddy system, but for voting? I love that. I love that a lot. Let's keep it up there. That's a fantastic idea. VFFs. Choose someone to be VFFs with. Devon Bledsoe. Yes, right on. Make it happen. People, that's how we do it. Power concedes nothing without a demand. I agree. Well put. Public utility. Now blame me because the average American is willfully ignorant and the majority are below average. Yeah. Oh, no, I don't blame you. I think, obviously, I have a bias, but I think if you're in this crowd, it's genuinely not your fault. You don't watch this stuff unless you care enough to know. I think there's been it goes back to the conversation with Donald James. And speaking of, let me drop that invite now. Let me see how I do that. I think, much like we were talking about with Fox News, both things can be true at once. Oh wait, no, we're not in that portion yet. I'm sorry, Donald James. Give me. I say it like X is your last name. I'm sorry, Donald. Uh, I'll drop invite links in a moment, but want to stick with this Giuliani news because that's too interesting not to do. Um, oh shoot, I think it's similar to the Fox News thing, where it is both our fault for allowing ourselves to be deceived, for allowing the blinders to be put on us as Americans. For example, we allowed 20 years of war in the Middle East to happen, just like Vietnam. We allowed these things to happen because we were comfortable. By and large, we were comfortable. As long as we were doing better than everybody else, we were okay with the people who were doing worse dying. There Let me speak for millennials, at least, since I am one. We had every right to know that we were living in delusion, and we chose to ignore those facts, myself included. I chose to allow myself to have almost no understanding of how the US government worked. I only knew it through tales told on the nightly news. And I suspected it wasn't the full story. But I never looked further. Not until 2015, when things got bizarre. Bizarre enough that nobody seemed to have a tidy explanation for what was going on. And then, only then, did I look further. My whole generation's guilty of the same thing. How many are dead because we couldn't be bothered to educate ourselves? So it is our fault. But we should also not pretend like there wasn't a concerted effort to delude us. We were delusional, but we were being deluded at the same time. Americans, not good people yet. On our way to being good people. Progressives, good people. You all in this audience, good people. Trying to make the world a better place. Let's get some good news, because what we are seeing now would not have happened in previous days. Give me a moment to pull it up here. Oh, this. See you next Tuesday. I cannot wait for this guy to whoopsie daisy. That's not what I intended to do. I can't wait for this guy to get his comeuppance. It looks like he has. Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay. Hold on, gang. I'm recording. Well. It looks like Rudy Giuliani has finally been disbarred. There's a tiny little bit of justice present in the United States judicial system. If you're not aware, Rudy Giuliani was Trump's personal attorney when the two of them tried to do a coup in the United States. It didn't go so hot. It was about a 25% success, because Trump was not able to hold on to the office he was trying to steal from the American people. But he also, so far, hasn't been punished for it either. Very few of the people who organized the coup have been punished for it, as is in keeping with the U.S. judicial system. The people that got punished were the lowest level, were the poorest, were the least powerful. Those people got punished pretty quick. Trump, Giuliani, the whole gang has largely escaped, but one by one, they're losing their power. They're having their power taken away from them. And that makes it easier to punish them in the United States. Let's look at Giuliani. Breaking news. This is on the Associated Press. One, Rudolph Giuliani has been disbarred in New York as a court finds he repeatedly lied about Trump's 2020 election loss. When you are a lawyer, it is a big deal if you break the law. It is a big deal if you are unethical. It is a big deal if you are dishonest. I frequently tell the story about my father getting speeding tickets and having to sell the car that he bought that was tended towards speed, and he was tempted to use it. He had to sell it not because he couldn't afford the speeding tickets, but because his law license would have been in jeopardy if he would have habitually gotten speeding tickets. Because as a lawyer, you cannot be casual about being lawful. These things do matter. At least they're supposed to. And at least, finally, we're getting Giuliani getting some comeuppance. Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, God help us, federal prosecutor and legal advisor to Donald Trump, was disbarred in New York on Thursday after a court found he repeatedly made false statements about Trump's 2020 election loss. No The Manhattan Appeals Court ruled Giuliani, who had his New York law license suspended in 2021 for making false statements about the election, is no longer allowed to practice law in the state, effective immediately. The seriousness of respondents' misconduct cannot be overstated, the decision reads. Giuliani flagrantly misused his position and baselessly attacked and undermined the integrity of this country's electoral process. Hot damn. I cannot wait for that to be presented to Republicans. In doing so, respondent not only deliberately violated, let me say that again, deliberately violated some of the most fundamental tenets of the legal profession, but he also actively contributed to the national strife that has followed the 2020 presidential election, for which he is entirely unrepentant. The court wrote, "My God, did we need some of this?" Giuliani said Tuesday that he wasn't surprised to lose his law license in his hometown, claiming in a post on the social media platform X, of course, that the case was based on an activist complaint, repeat with false arguments. Oh my God, how are we back to that already? I will say he clearly learned something from Donald Trump. He learned that the way to handle any publicly embarrassing situation is just pretend like it isn't happening. Pretend like everything is something else. He knows that people that began the article on his side are going to stay on his side for the most part, so long as he says the content of the article isn't true in his quote about it. Here's the thing, that little argument is working less and less and less because too many, it's Trump's argument. That's Trump's move. But too many other people have tried that. Carrie Lake did her whole second career of scamming Trump supporters who were by default Carrie Lake supporters with her after she lost her election. Too many people are doing that. Doesn't work as much, and they're devaluing that strategy for Trump as well. Because just like they like to say, "Oh, all politicians are the same," well, now people are hearing them say that, and in their minds, they're thinking, "Oh, all Republicans just say that when something goes wrong for them." Not everyone. The diehard are the diehard, the people who refuse to watch anything but Fox. What can you do? But for people who are willing, anyone who's willing to just poke their heads out of the bubble for a moment, it looks like what it is. Finally, consequences for Giuliani, and in front of a crowd who only understand right or wrong based on whether or not somebody experienced consequences for their actions. First domino falls. All right, I'm going to open this up to the Wicked community. Jason Hatfield. It's the Dory approach. Just keep lying. Just keep lying. Yeah, that's well put. A message to you, Rudy. A message to you, Rudy, says Donald James X. Sing it with me now. You, Rudy. Yeah. Rudy Giuliani. Not a good person. Environmental Coffee House, aka my gal Sandy. Jake, do you use a Stream Deck? I have to set mine up again. Not only do I not use one, I'm not even entirely clear on what they are. No, I'm just using StreamYard, which has been useful. So if that's what a Stream Deck is, then yes, but otherwise, no. Elaine, I am sorry, but this Canadian finds it ironic that your country started with a huge fight to not have a king. And now the Trump friendly SCOTUS has kinda given you guys a king. Shaking my head. You're completely correct. I mean, in fairness, conservatives in this country have always been pro monarchy, including when this country was founded. And I hate them. Hey, by the way, with all this stuff going on, I fucked up, Elaine. I fucked up real bad. Not gonna surprise you to hear an American say this, but I forgot about Canada Day. So I'm in the process of working on making it up. But this July 4th, I'm gonna have a Canada Day stream to celebrate Canada Day. Happy July, belated July 1st, and we'll celebrate with you on Thursday. I just goofed. Oh, ooh, Stream Deck by Elgato. Extreme Deck is an add-on where you push buttons to bring scenes and pictures up instead of using the mouse, but you have to program it. Good idea. That does sound like fun. Pitchfork's Dragon, he's not really king so much as a supreme dictator. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what you think the difference is. A king, in my estimation, is well, I was gonna say it's someone who's above the law. If you wanna get literal, a king is someone who inherits, a position of leadership. That's what it has inherited their position of leadership. But I mean, in terms of what a king can do as a result of the way in which they get their power, they can't have it taken away from them generally. So they are just a supreme dictator. Donald James X adding quite nicely, he's a supreme dick. Yeah. Ooh. We have kings around the world. They exist now. They aren't supreme dictators. Yeah, fair. There's strange situations in Monaco and England, but they're almost legacy. Yeah, I don't know enough about truly about monarchies to say how it is they are different from dictatorships. I do know that what you state is accurate because I do know plenty about dictatorships and putting the leader of the country above the law. I mean, that's it, gang. That's a dictatorship. Groove Dragon King is a line of succession, sure. Bela Lugosi, king is someone who inherits a corrupt Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah. Ah. There's Kim Jong Un, who is a country where people have never had sugar. Is that so? I was not aware. No problem, says Public Utility. Corporate media to the rescue. Devon Bledsoe. Hey, it's past my bedtime. We're all gonna not laugh about this one day. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Good night. Good night, Don. Kim Jong Un is the only foul. Probably. Good night. Good night to y'all. But I'm not going off yet. In fact, if you guys want to join me, if anybody's interested in letting me know uh, what you feel, have I got a treat for you. We're going to do a call in. Our comments at the end of the day are call it. If you want to talk about anything we talked about tonight, you can use the link that I just dropped in the chat. Go ahead and dial into StreamYard. We've got our first person. So let's get it going. Also, before I add you on here, sir, I do want to remind everybody if we get to $100 in donations tonight, we will do Wicked Diversity Squad. Nobody who calls in needs to do it, but you will all be invited if you so choose. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There might be some background noise, so you got to tell me how good it sounds. All right.
Pretty good. We hear a very slight bit of background noise, but it just sounds normal to me.
Well, that background noise is my air conditioner blowing in my
Oh,
face. So,
good.
all right.
Keep it.
um. So no, there was a reason why. It was something to do with. You wanted to ask me something.
Yeah. So, clarifying. Earlier in the stream, we were talking about is it the Fox News viewers' fault that they've been. You were talking about how you were able. Let me rephrase this. You were talking about how you were able to break out of a JW upbringing and learn about the world. And I was saying that not. I don't even think it's that. Well, I was saying that it's not entirely the fault of the people who have failed to break out. Uh, just expand a little bit on your thoughts on that. Do you think no two things to answer, I guess. Thing number one, do you think it is entirely the fault of people who have failed to break out? And thing number two, how do you feel we go about waking these people up, or is it even possible?
Well, you know, for instance, for an example, I'll use Jamal Bowman's recent race. Okay, in a sense where I was watching, we were watching the race live on Letterhack's channel. You
Hmm.
know, while it was going on, he had John from San Antonio there, right?
Yeah.
And anyways, they stayed on the air and we were watching the race and the numbers, and it was called for Latimere, you know, during the show. Okay, so he got it was conceded. You
Yeah.
conceded that Bowman lost. Okay, so John from San Antonio goes, look, I it was a close race. APAC, you know, spent a lot of money, and that's the reason. But at the same time, John from San Antonio said, in this instance, Bowman did everything right. He campaigned right. The message was out there. He's the incumbent. So John San Antonio had no choice, but he said, "Look, it's the voters." He said, "It's on the voters this time. There's no reason." So, in my opinion, it's like there's enough alternative information out there to where people should be able to take in all kinds of information so they can make an informed information for themselves. Okay, how
Sure.
stupid? Okay, this is where Andrea Ravinsky got me hooked. Okay, yes, it's Andrea's fault, but yeah, but I've always had that sentiment that the people, you know, voters are just dumb. I'm tired of blaming the mainstream media and propaganda on it every single time. Of course, it
Fair.
of course it's not all that. It's everything bundled into one, right? It's the leadership, it's people's apathy towards politics, and so on and so forth. But I think, but to me, I push the scale. I tend to go over the line and say I put most of the onus on the voters because they should be able to make an informed a decision at this point. Okay,
Yeah.
and so uh, I believe that voters actively choose the ideology. They choose it from the information that they get and take in. They choose to be right wing, not because they were tricked into it.
I think it's true that there is a chunk of the population who first decides, what side do I want to be on? And then looks for reasons to be on that side. But I've noticed something, which is the vast majority of MAGA supporters are older. Not all, admittedly, but the vast majority. I think that up until the age of the internet, the voter can be forgiven. I don't think it means they had no responsibility at all for the decisions made, but I do think they can be forgiven because what media did you have available for which to learn about these things? You had TV, newspapers, and radio. After the internet became a thing, now the responsibility changes. And I notice that the people who are on the side of MAGA are largely people who have, let's say, unrefined internet habits. They have trouble telling if something is a scam or not. They're frequently the target of internet scams. They're the people who are answering those emails from Nigerian princes. And they're getting their information primarily from either the television or social media, by which I mean like Facebook. I think what we're going to need to do is work on, first of all, media literacy with our friends and family. But I think you are I think you're right to say I'm sick of blaming the media because now you have you said it yourself, alternative news. I would urge you though to view it like this. Imagine somebody doesn't watch this stuff for fun and all they want to do is learn about what just happened real quick. They have 7,000 different news sources recounting the events to them. And in one way, it's put on a left wing spin. On another way, from what they can see, from another way, it's got a right wing spin, and they don't know which is true.
Okay, yeah.
So, what I would suggest to you is where we need to focus our effort is media literacy. And I don't mean we wait for something to happen and then we react. I mean as soon as you see anybody referring to Fox News or referring to whatever, Joe Rogan as a place they got information, have in your back pocket the argument for why do you pay any attention to them at all? So yes, attack people, but attack them well, let me try that again. Yes, debate with people. Yes, argue with people. Yes, hold the voters accountable, but hold them accountable first and foremost for listening to known liars.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I guess my brother he watches. Well, he used to watch Tucker. He used to watch Tucker on Fox. So you basically, plus he's a Jehovah's Witness. So it's like I kind of just don't waste my time. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna. There's already an understanding between us. You know what I mean? And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So I'm not gonna convince it. This is just like low chance. You know.
Yeah.
Some people I can hold a conversation with, to have a discussion. You know, I do make I do criticize the voters, like I said, but I'm not gonna like argue and put them down or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just a recognition of knowing that okay, fine, you should know better, but if you don't, that's on you. You know.
Yes. I I think you have a pretty good philosophy with this, and you and I going back and forth over this particular split hair. It's more just an exercise for people who have been in the trenches together for a long time now. I think we both know like our efforts between now and November they're going to be wasted if we're just constantly talking to cultists and what have you. Well, that was a unfortunate choice of words. To political fanatics. Um, yeah, it's we have to
Yeah.
just concentrate on the turnout, the vote effort, and getting people to understand that it's a serious election, which we're doing.
Yeah. And with Trump, what am I gonna say? What was I gonna say? I was watching the debates over at David Feldman's. He had a Zoom
Oh
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, and I was there. And after watching the debate, I was like, oh my god, but Biden did not look good. This is horrible. Okay,
it was
but
rough.
but everybody in his chat was saying, no, we're gonna die with Biden. Biden had all the substance. Was making all the points. They were thinking of substance. They weren't thinking how they weren't looking outside other people, everybody else's perspective
That
of
speaks
what
volumes.
you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so I was like, are you guys kidding me? I mean, so people are also stuck in their own bubbles.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And I'm talking about even on the left, we're also in our own bubbles. There's factions here and there.
We
You know what I
think
mean?
we always make the mistake of thinking people pay more attention than they do. It shocks me how little people pay attention to any of this.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
True.
Do you have other
Well
people
done.
waiting?
I do. I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna go to some other guests, but DJX, thank you for joining me.
All right. I'll see you. Bye, Jake.
See you, sir. You guys will at the end of this stream see a link to Donald James X's stream. He does one of the most relaxing things that I have had the pleasure of listening to. He plays guitar covers very frequently, and it's just a cool way to chill out. I recommend you check out his stream if you get the opportunity. In the meantime, with more comments on tonight's broadcast, we have Shade. Is this Shade Dragon?
It is.
Well, it's good to hear from you. How you doing?
Okay, just getting off work, walking
Oh,
home.
good. Enjoy the evening.
Yeah, well, pseudo evening, it never actually gets dark here.
Really?
At least not
Where's
during
here?
the summer. Coastal Alaska,
That's a
the
fun
sun,
place.
the sun just kind of circles the sky.
Wow. I would
It's,
genuinely love to spend like a week just experiencing that. My word.
a lot of people do at this time, and then during the winter, it does the same thing but opposite.
I might like that even more. Your old pal Jake is a nightman if ever there was one.
Oh, I definitely like it better. It's less peoply.
Yes. If if
A lot
if
of people can't handle the dark
I I do understand that, although I have to
or the
say,
snow.
yeah, I've just never felt that. I understand where that's coming from, but I've never. I guess I sympathize, but I've never been able to empathize. To me, the dark feels like a blanket that I'm wrapped up
Yeah,
in.
especially with all that beautiful snow.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well,
It gets kind of.
what were you looking to talk about specifically?
Oh, you were talking about people coming out of this whole cult mentality.
Yes.
From the research that I've seen, they're less interested in facts and more interested in even facts that would affect their own lives and well-being. They're more interested in purity, stuff that's related to their idea of purity.
Well,
Um,
two things. Thing number one, it sounds like you are in the middle of a hurricane.
oh, I'm sorry. It's quite windy.
Fair enough. But thing number two, what do you mean by they're interested in purity?
Well, basically, if stuff that doesn't that they don't like, they mainly don't like because it triggers an ick or disgust response. Same as when you talk about people who have homophobia or whatever. It's not a moral issue, it's a disgust issue.
Interesting.
So, yeah, absolutely. You can look this up. So, you figure out what their idea of purity is, and you appeal to them on that.
That
And if, and if
go
that
on.
doesn't
I like
work,
where this is going.
and if that doesn't work because they don't trust you, because they don't view you as being pure enough, you got to figure out who works. But that's only a
So-
certain kind of voter.
It does seem like we have an opportunity.
I'm sorry, give me a minute, okay?
Sure.
Oh, not you, I'm sorry, I ran into somebody.
Tells you my mentality. I'm like, oh, we'll wait. No, I think you've got a point, and I think I see how we could use this. Like, for the Supreme Court decision, we can say, are you comfortable with Biden having the ability to do, and then name the things the Supreme Court just said a president can do? Would you be comfortable with Obama being able to do that? Would you be comfortable with Hillary Clinton being able to do that? No? Well then.
I don't like any of these people.
Me either. Me either. And we can have an honest conversation with MAGA types and be like, look, I don't like them being able to do that. You don't like that they'd be able to do that.
I have before. Weirdly enough, there's been like 3 people that I've talked to on when I used to go on TYT main chat. This was a while ago. But I actually got them to reconsider their views because I'm like, I don't like any of these people either. Coming to them from a point of common ground,
yeah,
made me seem significantly more credible.
At the very
and after
least,
a while, one they'll start listening to facts and figures.
Yeah, if nothing else, they see that you're not on different teams, even if you're not, or rather, they see you're not on necessarily an opposing team, even if you're on a different team. And I think we could use their dislike of Biden or whoever, whatever Democrat, in order for them to encourage their candidate, their representative in Congress, to join in overturning this this awful Supreme Court ruling.
That is actually usually what I said to them when they accused me of being brainwashed or something. It's like, dude, I don't like him either. But the ones who were going to decided to ditch out are already going to ditch out because of Trump, because he embarrassed them. It's not even whether it's right or wrong. The fact of the matter is he's a convicted felon now. So he embarrassed them.
True. Good point.
But the ones that are still there are, a lot of them were raised with binary thinking. So it was basically, this is good, this is bad. And it's like an obedience thing. And a lot of it is tied to fundamentalist religious thinking. So it's like good and evil, piety and blasphemy, and just being a conservative was regarded as being a good person. And that's like suggesting to them that they be a bad person on purpose. And depending on how old they are and how deeply invested they are, they may go for the sunk cost fallacy. And if it's an intrinsic part of their worldview, they may just not want to change that because it would cause like a psychotic break almost.
Oh, I think when you're talking to these people, remind them that they exist outside of their political party as well. Yes, John, from wherever you may lose a lot of your self-identity if you decide you're no longer a Trump fan, but don't forget you also fiddle. You also are a softball coach. You also are this, that, and the other thing. Those things
There's
don't go away.
that. But
Yeah.
the thing that I've noticed, the reaction that I've noticed, a lot of people say, oh, well, we don't have room for you anymore. The thing that helps them fit back into sanity, and there is a rebuilding process because it is a cult. Build the rebuilding process and getting back to rationality is when people go, well, okay, no shame. It was kind of fucked up, but no shame. Welcome back.
It's gonna suck, but I think you're right. It has to be done. That has to be the way we address it. It's not a
And you
matter.
gotta
Yeah, as you said
gotta
earlier, it's not
understand
a matter.
some people are never gonna come back.
True, but for those that can, I think it's important to remind ourselves it's really not about right or wrong right now. It's about what needs to be done.
Survival.
Yeah, which means we don't have the luxury of being able to hold grudges. Shade, thank you
Yeah,
for calling in. I think we have a distinguished guest waiting. If you don't mind, I'm gonna move on to them. But I appreciate you.
absolutely. Thank you for
All right,
having me.
absolutely. See you around, my friend. Well, before we move on to our distinguished guest, I just want to remind folks. Uh, Whoopsie daisy. I just want to remind folks that if we get to $100 donated tonight, and by the way, I'm going to count that 5 gifted memberships as let's say $30. I don't think it was, but I'm counting it as that anyway. $30 added on top of our 15 already donated. Folks, we're at $45. That's 45% of the way there. If by the end of this stream we can get to $100, we're doing another episode of Wicked Diversity Squad. I hope you're as excited as I am, and I hope you got a spare, what do we have, $55. Now, without further ado, a man who is called in and is extraordinarily relevant to today's broadcast, former mayor of New York, Rudolph Giuliani. Hello, Mr. Giuliani.
Hello, is this thing on?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Okay, well, listen here. I'm impressed that you have been talking to me about me getting this far to New York. Well, because the press is spying on me, and I need you to help me get my law license back in New York. Well, it's because I'm being sued $1,000 out of my own goddamn pocket, and I need you to help me clear my name and say I did not do anything wrong.
Well, the thing is, I think you did. I think you did a lot wrong.
What do you
I
mean?
think you tried to get 2 election workers killed.
That is a lie. That is false. Donald Trump did that.
Well, I mean, with your assistance, you and Donald Trump, I think both went at Miss Freeman and Miss Moss over in Georgia. Aren't you the one that said they were handing out drugs like candy, and then it turned out it really was candy?
Maybe some crack and weed, maybe a little bit of Twizzlers, and many M&Ms.
Now, first of all, thank you, Pitchforks Dragon, for the very kind $5.
Oh,
Second of
thank you
all,
for the money. I'll take that money.
there's somebody. Oh, damn it! That's right. It goes right to Rudy. I'll still count it. So we're just $50 away, folks. We're halfway to our goal. If we get to $100, we're doing Diversity Squad. But here's the thing. Mr. Pitchforks Dragon seems to be under the impression that you're apparently not the real Rudy Giuliani. That seems
Excuse me. I am the real Rudy Giuliani. You are just a fake.
Okay, tell me something only the real Rudy Giuliani would know.
Okay, the real Rudy Giuliani was at the scene of 9/11, and he was honoring the victims of 9/11.
I mean, I feel like everybody would know where Rudy Giuliani was on 9/11.
God damn it, you got me.
Ah!
Uh-huh.
Detective work. You had me going.
Sick son of a bitch. Now let me change my name and I'll turn the camera on.
All right. little
There you
detective
go.
work. LT9K, my word. How
There
you
you go.
doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jay?
I mean, I'm doing fantastic, man.
All right.
I shouldn't be, given the fact that the U.S. has become an authoritarian nightmare. But I am.
Right. Turned to a shit show.
It sure did. Yeah. What are your thoughts
And
on tonight's story? Did you have stories? Did you have anything that came to mind in particular?
today's ruling on SCOTUS, fake SCOTUS.
Oh, they're very real, unfortunately.
And today's ruling, let me say this. That's unfair. That's a disaster. And
Yeah.
it's going to delay Trump's trial. No, I'm sorry. Trump's sentencing. It's supposed to be lasting next week.
Mhm.
But now it's going to be in September.
Yeah.
But
They,
that's sure going to be one hell of a disaster. So I wouldn't trust these damn judges. Because
rightly so. They're as
folks,
corrupt as they get.
there is corrupt. There is corrupt.
Now, do you have my issue? Let me just intro this a little bit. My issue is that Democrats acknowledge problems and do nothing to solve them. I foresee a future coming quick where Democrats are pressured to solve them. My question to you is, and granted, you're not going to be held to this for the rest of your life. I just want to know, as of tonight, what is a way you would like to see the Supreme Court's recent rulings fixed? What do you want done about the Supreme Court?
I like to see them get their act together. I like to see everything overturned and get their act together. Because right now, we're seeing MAGA at its worst.
Yeah.
And blue MAGA, too, which is what we called it on Sandy's show tonight. Blue MAGA for the Democrats.
Yes. I agree. I would like to see the court packed, first of all, so that this frankly illegitimate majority goes away. I say illegitimate because Republicans denied 2 seats to Democratic presidents. I want to see that overturned.
I do too.
So packing the court to deal with future problems and to deal with the rulings that have already been issued. We need a blue House, blue Senate, and we need literal laws made that that change the nature of the rulings. We need laws that explicitly state. I would recommend calling it the U.S. Magna Carta, that explicitly state that it is illegal for the president of the United States to issue an illegal order, and they can be prosecuted.
Yeah, and that also, the whole 10 Commandments in public schools thing is such a whole goddamn disaster.
If you are an atheist in those states, you have a moral obligation to sue. I say this as an atheist from Michigan. You have a moral obligation to sue. If you don't have kids, it does not matter. Maybe for standing. But, I mean, if you fail to attack this problem, atheists in, Mississippi? Louisiana? Yeah, Mississippi. If you had... Oh, Louisiana. If you are an atheist there and you fail to sue, understand that what you are doing is putting it on the next family, and then the next family, and then the next family, and you're just running away. That's all you're doing.
And he said, I'll be glad to get sued, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. They said it, and I think they are wrong to have said it. Because I think it's pretty neatly laid out in the Constitution, and I think we have an obligation to fight.
Right. Fight back. Just don't sit there. What the hell are y'all doing? Just fight back. Sue these motherfuckers, especially Jeff Landry, this Trump motherfucker who wants to be a Trump wannabe, wants to put a king on his head and rule the hell out of the state of Louisiana. Come on. Essentially the same situation in Oklahoma.
It's madness. And it's madness we have thus far allowed, which we just cannot do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
LT9K, you and Bob Carmody, I recommend as I submit as the left's two most famous moderators. I thank you for joining me tonight, and I will see you on the next one.
All right.
See
Be
you,
on
buddy.
Left Fast 10 tomorrow.
Yes, sir. We got one more that I'm gonna one more call. Is that what we call it? That I'm gonna take. But first, let me get rid of. Shoot, did I not even pin that? I didn't even pin that. I do apologize. Yeah, I was gonna get rid of the link, but it's donezo. So anyway, here is Clarity from BFEO. Is this formerly BC Clarity? Clarity, are you there? This may be a quicker call than I thought. Clarity, if you are there, make sure your microphone is connected or unmuted. Convention ready judges. Well, hello. Clarity, I can't hear you. So if you're talking, try it again. Still not hearing you. Here's what I'm going to do, Clarity. If you can, I'm going to kick you out. If you can, use the link in the chat. Oh, in fact, here. Copy this. I just put it in the private
Try
chat.
now.
Oh, hey, there we go. I hear you now.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, Clarity. Good to hear from you.
Hi.
How's life?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Challenging. I live in Northeast Oregon in the desert, and I'm waiting for a upgrade replacement on my heating and cooling system. But I'm relying on a local nonprofit to get the job done. So I'm doing my best to hunker down and survive the heat.
Were you the one that I saw in the chat saying it's 110 degrees where you were? Was that a yes?
No, that's next week.
Oh no. Well, you're getting that.
How much delay is there?
A slight delay, but I think we're okay. We'll just go in long stretches each. So, did you have comments on anything we talked about tonight, or did you want to bring up something else?
I'm looking at the long game. And the long game means that we're not easy fixes because we're going through a generational change. And we can call it gerontologically brain-locked Democrats. We're still thinking like boomers. But, most of the apparatus is still there. We're still running on DOS systems. And
well put.
The transition has always the transition between energy systems is also going on. There's also a transition between a local tribal awareness to a global universal awareness, which is a big stretch for, Homo sapiens. So there's a lot of stress, not only on us as societies, but also as beings of, as we're evolving with the universe, it's not fun sometimes, because we are stretched as to what we can tolerate, as to what we shouldn't tolerate, and what we think we should hope for, But we know deep down what brings life is love, nurturing, caring, and what tends to break things is when we don't trust, when we don't recognize the other person's suffering as the same as our own. And I guess that's the deep thing I want to add. But going back to the political shit, when I was a Democratic precinct officer and I walked my precinct back in '96, we were trying to get rid of Linda Smith, who was voted the most conservative GOP person, and that was my representative when I lived in the 3rd District in Washington State.
Good.
And I found out that many of my neighbors were felons who could not vote. Even though they'd served their time, they'd done their whatever, they could not vote. And so a lot of people, poor people, are not only discouraged, but prevented from voting. And these are white people.
They make it illegal to be poor.
Disgruntled. And Trump has inspired them.
I was just going to say, it's not a coincidence that conservatives make it illegal to be poor and then make it so that people who broke the law can't vote. It's good observation. And interesting that you say that they tend to be, or at least in your area, poor white.
And then when I get to the precinct and the state caucuses, I bring up a really radical idea. Let's raise the limit on Social Security taxes from, at that time, it was, I think, about $103,000 was the limit. Let's raise it to $250,000, and we've solved the deficit. We solved all these problems, changing the index on, the taxes. And, oh, my God, I might as well have been Trotsky sitting there in that Democratic caucus room, in Clark County, Washington. So the same thing's going on right now with the conservative Democrats. They don't want to touch that middle index. Those people that are actually got a pretty good deal from Trump because they took out some of the combined taxes that people pay that are self-employed. And, the small businesses, they are family businesses, a lot of them. But they're under the same tax codes as Monsanto and Exxon and Bayer. They're paying the same tax rates as people here who have, family farms that are, they're multi-million-dollar operations, but they're labor intensive. They're, involve their entire families. It's not where some, and they're feeding people and they're caring for the land. The land is in better shape than when they first started here in the 50s, which can't be said for a lot of America. You go to, parts of Texas, it can't be farmed anymore because of the aquifer depletion.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I have to say,
we have to look at the long run that we love ourselves and the land.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you started off with, and I wholeheartedly agree. So does a lot of the audience. I think as we venture into these places of human consciousness where it becomes necessary to keep in mind larger and larger groups of people, to the point where for our brains, it's our tribal brains, it's unfathomably large, it becomes important to simply have principles and to rely on those principles so that you are actively looking for the greater good for all. In other words, essentially, as you were saying, remember to be kind to others and to give in to love. Don't give in to hate. I think that
thank you.
Strangely enough,
that sums it up really.
I suspect that the way out of this as a civilization will be to tap into those religious emotions that people have. Because one thing I appreciate about religion, even if I don't personally believe in any particular religion, is that it trains people to think in massive scales and in terms of general principle. And I think if we are able to recapture that tendency. We're going to have a massive change. But as you said earlier, I mean, this stuff is changing anyway. It's just a matter of what's left when the kids finally get control. Can we preserve until then? I think we can, but it's going to be a fight.
Until COVID's done its job and freeze them up from my generation.
Hey man,
but I'd
like
to leave. I'd like to leave something behind that in 2063 they go, Clarity was right, and it must have been really messed up being right, and everybody else was going, she's nuts. She's fucking whack.
My dear, let me tell you, love you as well. And before you go, let me just say, the people who were progressive in previous eras, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you just said. You were progressive when you had to endure it and when it was a lonely thing. So thank you for all you've done.
May it be.
See you around, Clarity. Well, gang, we didn't quite hit the $100 mark, but thank you for those that donated. I really appreciate it. It's what makes this channel possible, as are the members. As I said to my members earlier today, you are the reason I have editing equipment and a subscription to StreamYard and the various other things that are necessary to put on this show, humble though it may be. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can do so by clicking the buttons below. That's on YouTube. Same on Twitch. You can click to subscribe if you're not already. Gang, that's going to do it for your old pal Jake. I'm going to leave you with some advice from Donald James X. After this from Logan Hill. We can end so many problems if those in power went with those tenets. Fair enough. Donald James X. Here's a little piece of advice from our man DJ X. If you have a freezer, a good trick is to freeze a wet towel and switch it with another one, and you'll have an ice cold towel. That actually sounds lovely. I could see myself doing that for myself and the Jack Russell Terrier, who does not care for the heat, even in Michigan, although it's been lovely lately. Hey, speaking of Donald James X, did you know that our outro, the outro to this show, is performed by Donald James X? It sounds like this. Damn it. That was almost smooth. You know what? I'm going to vamp while this is going because I might have uploaded the wrong video, but I still want to hear DJ X play me out. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you to everybody who donated. I'll see you on the next one tomorrow.